Hello and welcome to today's session of PACO's Workers' Compensation Roundtable. Today is Thursday, June the 20th, and we are pleased to have with us Dean Borger today. Dean is a seasoned private investigator and owner of Borger Investigative Services since 1998. He is doing business in Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Let's see, Borger Investigative Services specializes in an array of crucial investigative areas, demonstrating a commitment to excellence that has made them an invaluable resource in the field. Their core competencies include expertise in insurance, fraud investigations, corporate inquiries, and legal investigations. The agency also has demonstrated its dedication to the pursuit of justice by engaging in court-appointed criminal cases involving serious offenses such as rape, murder, arson, and burglary. His extensive background is a testament to his proficiency and dedication. Before establishing the agency, he served the United States Army for a decade. Following his military service, he honed his investigative skills while working for a national security company for another 10 years. Dean's reputation extends beyond his successful career. He's authored numerous investigative articles that have been published in prestigious outlets, establishing himself as a leader in the field. Dean's expertise has also attracted media attention with appearances on both local and national television and radio programs. We are very pleased to have you with us today, Dean, and you're going to talk to us about using an investigator in a workers' comp arena, and we are can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Great, thank you, Angie. Thank you. Pleasure to be here as always. Been associated with PACO for a long time now, and I guess in my beginning of my agency, I did a lot of workers' comp, did a lot of workers' comp investigation, especially for self-insured companies. So all over the state and so forth. So not trying to make this as a sales pitch, but just letting people know that there is a resource out there to help make decisions on workers' comp claims and so forth. So because a lot of times you don't know whether a claim is valid or not. So just going to kind of go through some of these slides here. Again, we're going to be talking about the collaboration between the investigators and the legal team. So it becomes the ultimate goal is to come out with a minimal result, whether they determine that it was a truly legitimate claim or just totally false. Because in my experience, a lot of people feel that like any insurance related claim, even workers' comp, well, I paid into it. Well, they've worked there, at that factory for 20 years. The guy got injured. Don't bother him. Don't look into it. Just pay him the money because he can't work anymore. And a lot of times there's other ulterior motives on why they may have filed a workers' comp claim or claim that they got injured. And that's where we come in, where we're kind of looking into that background. Is there some kind of motive on why they did it? Then you come to find out they're losing their home, they're getting a divorce, just some other things that may be going on in their life that may have come down to say, hey, I need money, I need to have some sort of income, or they're going to get fired or laid off. That was very common as well. You get that a lot. They get the notice that in 60, 90 days, whatever, closing the plant down, so forth. These people have been working there for a long time, so very common that you kind of see these injuries manifest out of those kind of situations as well. So just wanted to throw some kind of current figures out there. I know you guys probably, it's all about money, right? It's all about the cost and everything. So if you look, and I got this from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp, they had 85,000 claims last year in 2023. With the estimated cost about $2.5 billion. And I think that number's actually kind of gone down over the years because I know personally in my agency have experienced a little less call for investigations of a workers' comp claim, more for injury specific type claims, automobile accidents or work related other injuries and so forth, not so much a workers' comp. So, average cost of that claim was about 29 or almost $30,000. Claims that resulted in lost work days, about 35% of those claims, and fraudulent claims, about 1 to 2% were fraudulent. And again, those are discovered fraudulent claims, and a lot of times those are pretty blatant. You get the neighbor calling in that doesn't like this guy, and he's always home now, and he's putting a new roof on the barn and so forth, and they find out that he filed a claim. I actually had a claim like that. I had a dispute down in Southern Ohio. There's this guy that was always home, and his backyard abutted up to the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor, he would always be he actually pulled a gun out on the neighbor at one
Wow.
point about this is my yard, this is the line, and you don't go over this, and you know just some outlandish things that were going on. Well, the neighbor decided, I'm going to find out about this guy. So he just did a Google search for this guy, and he found a lawsuit that this guy had against a company for, it was a workers' comp claim. It was a workers' comp claim um, that he had against the company. So he called the company and told him, say, hey, there's nothing wrong with this guy. He's always out in the backyard mowing his lawn, cutting wood, loading up the trailer, and all this stuff. So the company then called me and said, hey, this neighbor said you could actually use his backyard or come on his property to watch this guy. And he had his own surveillance cameras back there that we got some of the video from that. And he knew the days and times that the guy was mostly active and so forth. And that's when we went down there and got some additional footage of him doing things he alleged that he couldn't do. So that's how a lot of the times that's how it plays out in most cases. There's been a call or they're going to a nurse and their hands are calloused, or they're getting more muscular, like they're working out or whatever they're doing. Those are some of the kind of common things that I've heard over the years, doing this work. So estimated fraud costs about 50 million annually. And again, the case example there, severe back pain, because back pain is always very hard to diagnose. I can say I got my back hurts, and it's hard to pinpoint that down. But I would say, and I had an attorney tell me this, that about 75% of the time you don't catch them doing anything, but there's that 25% that when you do go out there, and that's what we do. We try to make it, we look into their background. What do they have coming up, or what are they putting on social media, or where are they going to be vacationing? Are they going to Cedar Point to the water park? What are they doing? Do they have kids graduations or activities coming up? It's usually good when they have kids because they're going to be active in most cases out and about with them. So, but it's always the money cost is one thing there. So it's like, do we take a chance of trying to get some evidence on these people? But most of it's because of what doctors are saying, what are other medical people are saying, calls that they may be getting in from neighbors or other work or coworkers or so forth that may kind of snitch on them, basically. So I'd say 9 times out of 10, if we're called, they're up to something that's contrast to what their alleged injuries are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our role would be if we were retained to help or assist with a workers' comp claim. Um, Evidence collection, surveillance, of course, doing that. And I haven't done a lot of interviews before, but we used to do what we called was an activity check. It was a little shorter kind of investigation that we would do rather than a full surveillance for several days. We would potentially talk to neighbors. We'd potentially talk to individuals to find out. Of course, we'd do background, make sure they're not related to them sometimes, but we'd try to find out, hey, what you know your name. We're just doing a background. We'd pretext because since they're not the neighbors aren't represented, the person that has the claim may be represented, so we can't have any contact with them, but neighbors and so forth. We usually would pretext that we were updating maybe an insurance policy or doing something that made sense. So every situation was kind of a little different on what we did. So we have done those kind of things in the past. So evidence collection, conducting a surveillance, doing the backgrounds, just what's going on in a person's life. I forgot to put on here that more and more we're doing social media investigations, and that really kind of tells. We got a case right now that this guy, and the older the claim is, the more lax they're going to become and go out and do stuff that they're really not supposed to be doing. I got a claim from like 2019 that this guy is posting pictures of him uh, working with his friend woodworking, and he had a leg injury and so forth. Wasn't that the injury didn't happen and so forth, but it does not appear that it's to the extent that he said he's totally unemployable and can't do anything, just sits at home and watches TV, basically. But we're finding a lot of stuff contrary to that. Um, so we do those kind of things. The social media thing, I just did want to say about our social media. It's more than just Googling it and looking at Facebook pages and cutting and pasting it. We actually authenticate where we find the information. So if it does have to be it is submitted as evidence, here's where we found that we just didn't cut and paste something in there, from 10 years ago and say it was going on yesterday and so forth. So it's authenticated on when it occurred. So and we generally can do time parameters. We want to know everything, a year up to where they were injured, then anything up to current. So we don't put in everything. If they've had Facebook for 20 years, we don't include all their stuff in there. We can narrow it down to time periods. Surveillance, of course, monitoring them, what's going on. We videotape that, time and date that stuff. So that's always the challenge, especially in rural areas. One thing that is coming a little more prevalent, and I'm not sure so much in Ohio, but with drones conducting surveillance, especially in rural areas. There's kind of that question of uh, privacy, of course, and we'll talk about that. But is there an expectation of privacy if they're on their property and you're flying this thing not over their property, but you could potentially zoom in, and they wouldn't even know it was up there. Some of these drones can be so high that you wouldn't even know that it was recording that. And I've seen people in the Midwest states, because it's so rural out there, and a lot of their surveillances, more and more are using it. So that might be a next topic on legitimacy and use of drones in rural surveillance scenarios. So
Is that a direction you're going so far? Are you doing
we're
drones?
exploring it, but because if it was used for commercial use, you do have to be licensed. You do have to have your FAA license. I mean, if you just have a one and you just fly it in your backyard, you don't have to be licensed to do that. But if you're doing it for commercial purposes, like obviously real estate companies are doing them more to, over the properties, and actually flying the smaller ones inside the houses too, just to kind of give it a different viewpoint of it. But something we could look into. If I just want to make sure it's going to be acceptable, it's going to be admissible, that we're not just hey, oh no, we didn't think you were going to fly this thing over top of us and we're going to be in our our pool in the backyard, doing cannonballs or whatever. Uh, so it's something in the modern day of technology that some people are moving to, and it's on the horizon, I guess, to do that. But we've gone undercover, especially if we know people are working, maybe at a place we can go into, a restaurant or a bar or retail store or something like that. Again, it comes back to always my first question is, can we have any kind of contact with the individual and so forth, especially if they're not represented, they're kind of free game, I guess, with the cases. But most of the time we always are trying to be ethical and in compliance with all the laws and making it admissible and so forth. Because we talked about the interviews there a little bit. Witness statements, coworkers' insights, medical people obviously give their opinion all the time. Um, there was a certain doctor in Grandview that if you went to him, you were immediately put off. You were put on, opiate drugs and morphine and all sorts of stuff. So some of these medical professionals' opinions can be challenged at some point. That's why we have IMEs and go and send them to those independent medical doctors to get a second opinion, because some of them just want to keep them coming, and collect that, whatever money or however they're operating. So we know there's, some unscrupulous medical professionals out there that do this kind of do that kind of thing. I don't think he's in business anymore. I saw his office is empty over there. I think it's for rent,
I
but
think he's retired.
it's literally around the corner. I could walk to it, and I'd always see that, because we actually had to do surveillance there a couple of times, because we found that they had appointments there. But so some of the tools, video, photos, whatever we do, the social media thing, as I mentioned earlier, are definitely sources. I mean, we still use, and it's all date and timestamp. One thing what is good with us is now, instead of in the day, you used to have to copy it to a thumb drive or a VHS tape. I remember putting them on VHS tape and dropping that off, and then they never got looked at, because they didn't have time to pop it in. But now, just because of the age of technology, we do have a online case management program that all of our photos, video, anything that you submitted, depositions, doctor's reports, social media reports, everything is maintained online. So you can go online, watch a video, say, hey, that's good. You can download that directly from that file. So it's a little easier, and it saves a lot of time. So you have a little more instant um, awareness of what's going on with the claim, and make further decisions on more surveillance, or it doesn't look like or it looks like they truly are injured, whatever the case may be there. So background checks, their history. A lot of times when these people have criminal records and they just can't get other jobs because of that, in a lot of cases they'll find other ways to have some kind of income. I've done a lot of automobile accidents where, they've known each other, or the vehicles weren't even driving. They just pulled them together and to make it look like an accident. Again, they find an attorney that files a claim, and now they're trying to, all we want is $1,000 a piece. They're just like slip and falls as well. But you know so they're all kind of similarly related. Financial records, generally, if you find civil records on what's going on, owing a lot of money, filing bankruptcies, those can be some indicators or motivators to want to kind of commit some kind of workers' comp fraud or insurance fraud in general. And again, like I said, a lot of people feel this is more of what we call a white fraud or a crime that's, really, so what that they exaggerated, you know, the injury. So what that they, they've been paying it, but it's like auto insurance. You never have an accident for 20 years and you finally have one, and they treat you like a criminal sometimes, like on what happened and how they investigate it. Um, but I look into a lot of those, and it's usually because there's some kind of injury as well. Um, Investigative reporting, we do, like I said, how we document that. Um, uh, so everything's accessible. It's our objective analysis. Again, we don't say, hey, I don't know how he felt, when he was limping like that. I don't know how he felt, when he was, getting in and out of his vehicle. All I can do is provide visual documentation of what they were doing, of what their activities were. Um, and especially if we're not, communicating with them or whatever. So we're in the shadows. We're just kind of observing and reporting. And doctors generally look at the video to make decisions. Or he wasn't acting like that when he came to see me, or he shouldn't be able to do that based on his alleged injuries and capabilities. So that's more evidence or documentation of their physical, and comparing it to what already exists and what's in the file on the individual. So again, kind of talk about ethical, legal and ethical stuff. Again, we don't violate any policy. We have to be in compliance with all the privacy laws and those kind of things. We don't set people up to make them do things that they normally wouldn't do. You see some of this stuff on TV sometimes that they'll, put a big tree branch behind their car that, they'll have to get out, come out and move it or drag it away if they're going to move, or bend over to pick it up and do stuff. So we don't entrap people to do that. We just are there when we think that they're going to be active. And again, going back to what we find in conducting kind of a background pre-surveillance check on them, because we want to be successful when we go out there. Holidays, the 4th of July coming up, typical time when people are outside, playing in the yard, playing baseball, going to sporting events, playing with their children, going fishing, hunting, whatever they're doing. It's usually a good time. It's winter, and don't discount winter in Ohio. They got to shovel snow, and we've got a lot of people shoveling snow sometimes, and doing and skiing and doing other things as well. So we maintain evidence integrity here. Everything, all of our clients have an individual login to that. So when they download it, they kind of have to be responsible for what they do with any kind of video files and those kind of things. So again, privacy regulations. We don't peep through windows. We don't climb over fences. We don't, set up cameras in places where there's an expectation of privacy. And again, going back to the drone thing, that's where there's a question. If you're in your backyard and you have a fence all the way around it, but now you're flying over top of it and seeing what's going on, is that a intrusion of their privacy? But if they come out and they go to Walmart, like they always go to Walmart, especially on a Saturday, if we lose them, we usually just go to Walmart. We usually find them there. But when I've ever had to testify, in over 25 years I've been in business, there's been probably, I can count on one hand how many times I've had to testify, because we try to make our report and our evidence and the video just self-explanatory. This is what we saw them doing. This is what they were doing. And most of the time it's just to validate, yes, on this date at this time, that's what we observed them doing. But I always get the questions. Now, where were you sitting? Did you ask permission from the church to sit in that parking lot across the street? No. I said, we just said, if they would have looked over there, they would have seen our vehicle sitting there. But not videotaping them, but we were sitting there. I mean, we didn't cut any, the chains were down. It was the church parking lot. So that's the big question a lot of times. Why are you running background? Why are you running license plates on all the vehicles at the house. Well, we want to know which vehicles the person are watching. So when that vehicle leaves, we could follow them. We're not investigating the other individual. So we just kind of have to have a broad picture, but we try to, we exclude the ones, the innocents, the other, spouses and children and everybody else that may be at the house. So we don't get them involved. So we don't put their names in the report and so forth. We just focus on the individual that we've been tasked to look into. So yeah, again, we don't give any opinions. It's just this is what we observed on this day at this time. I did get questioned one time in federal court in Indiana. We were watching a guy. There was no question that he was injured. He broke both of his femurs broken up. A truck accident. A truck hit a tow truck that he was standing behind in the winter, and it threw him like 100 feet. But he was young, and he recovered very well. Um, uh, but his brother took like 40 pictures of him in the hospital. So we got all those downloaded. Then he was working for a HVAC company, and we were able to follow him around, and he was walking a little slow, but he didn't have any braces on. He wasn't, bedridden or whatever. But we got that, and then he was mowing, pushing a lawnmower. So, and this was because they were looking, he was only in his 20s, all the lost revenue and potential income and all how they calculate that. I think he was asking for like $3.1 million or something. So that's why it was in federal court. But we were able to show that he wasn't as injured, plus medical doctors. And again, he was young and healthy and recovered pretty well. But they asked us to testify. But one of the questions was, I used the word gait, that he walked in a normal manner and at a normal gait. And they asked, "Well, Mr. Borger, are you a gait expert? Did you study gait in college?" And I said, "No, I'm just describing the way he walked." And it's just a kind of a common term, that in these kind of cases that we use the word gait, a normal gait when he's not dragging his leg, he's not limping, he doesn't have a cane, he doesn't have a brace on. So that was the biggest question they asked me at federal court. So then the other question was about privacy, because we were sitting in a parking lot, a church parking lot, just right across the street from where he lived. And it was kind of in a rural area, so we didn't really have a lot of options on where to sit. But if there's any questions why I'm going through this, just let me know. I'm just kind of going through it. Got a couple more slides here, but again, benefits, prevention. Sometimes, and I've been involved where kind of a pre-investigation position where, and I don't know how some of your insurance, how some of the law firms advise their employer um, clients, but we had at one point we had a fraud hotline. It was an 800 number that coworkers, or if they saw any unsafe acts, or they suspected that somebody wasn't truly injured, or they set up an injury so they would get injured or whatever, or doing stupid stuff like surfing on the I've seen all sorts of videos where people get those tow trucks, and they'll like stand on those blades, and they'll run down and act like they're surfing and doing all sorts of unsafe stuff in the workplace. So we've been involved in that kind of stuff as far as prevention. When people know that you can call this 800 number anonymously and report somebody that may be committing fraud, not only fraud in the workers' comp, but even theft. Somebody stealing from the warehouse, somebody stealing things, or going out to the parking lot and on their break-ins, doing drugs, or doing things they're not supposed to be doing while they're at work. So it kind of helps reduce that stuff, especially if there's a policy out there. But we had, what would happen was they could call in, that we would basically kind of pre-evaluate where we thought it was a true something to look into, then advise the client to say, "Hey, this person called, said this is what they did, this is what's going on." So, and that could be that 800 number we had. It was a site we call it the silent witness program, where they could call in a lot of different stuff. Because when employees know that there's a venue or a resource where you can call in on somebody else, and that's the thing. We had to check it out first, make sure they just weren't upset with them on something, or they got promoted and they didn't get promoted, whatever the reason is. But we would kind of pre-screen that stuff. So obviously helps with lowering insurance premiums and so forth. But I've worked with both, employers, uh, the especially self-insured, self-administered employers, and I've worked with law firms that are representing the employer in any workers' comp case there. So time efficiency. So um, just some stats out there. 15.7 months is about the average for that to get resolved. A little over a year. About 50% of them are resolved 13 to 24 months. So you can see that sometimes these take a little bit of time, just with hearings and medical exams and doctors, experts being involved and so forth. Depends on the seriousness of the injury as well. But we can be a component in that process. And I think we work closely with a lot of law firms, in the state, and we've had other out of state law firms and others contact us for uh, things that they've had that may have happened somewhere else and came to Ohio or the other states we're in. So we have the expertise in this. I remember going back in the day before HIPAA, I could go do medical screening. I could go to the hospital and say, "Hey, do you have any records on this person?" And do you remember that? uh,
Hmm.
you didn't have to have anything. I would just say, "I'm a private investigator. I'm doing an investigation. I need to know if you have any emergency room visits or any hospital records of being hospitalized here," looking to see if they just aggravated a pre-existing injury. And that's what we found a lot of cases. They've been to the doctor, over about the same stuff over the last 10 years, this back problem. Sometimes it's because they're addicted to the drugs and they just want the pain medications or whatever it is. But back then, I mean, I've had them give me copies of x-rays too. They just like gave me the x-rays. And we used to be able to do a lot more. Uh, but because of people abusing it or misusing it, they had to put laws into place to protect that information. I used to get telephone records, just call records on, we would look at the numbers. And I had a case on the east side on Livingston Avenue, where we're doing a workers' comp claim. And we saw this one number that he kept calling every day at like 11 o'clock. I said, well, let's see what that is. So we look up what the number was, and it was a pizza place. I said, well, I bet he could potentially be working there, checking on a schedule or whatever he's doing. I said, well, let's go over there and see. And this is when I had my fancy surveillance van, and I took one of my interns with me, and we got in the parking lot. And as we're sitting there, and we knew what his vehicle looked like, we see across the street there's um, a what do you call it? Kind of like a UDF kind of place. And I said, I think that's our guy. And he got out and started hanging up all these. And he had a back problem, and so he was reaching above, hanging up all these knockoff Gucci bags and all this stuff. So he was kind of running his own business there. And so he was there from like 9 to 5, but that 11 o'clock call was to order his lunch. He was ordering his lunch from the pizza place. So we see him come over to the pizza place to get his lunch at like 11:30 and go back. But he was there till like 5 o'clock. Then we came back the next day, got there, right on time. He was there at 9 o'clock again. So he was basically there full time doing this. But I sent my intern over there, and she had a wireless video camera on it because he had a hoodie on and a hat on. So we just wanted to get a little closer face up shot of him. And he told the claimant that said, "Hey, I'm in a sorority, and I think the girls would like these bags. When are you out here?" And he said, "Well, I'm out here all the time." He said, "You know, can you give me your phone number?" And he wasn't represented. "Can you give me your phone number so we can call and make sure you're here so we don't drive all the way out here?" And he wrote it down on a piece of paper and wrote his name on it. So we verified that it was him. So we got to do that. So that's the fun part of the job is just figuring out what to do and how to do it legally and ethically and getting the information that we need and the true picture of what's going on with that claim. So I know I kind of rattled through a lot of this. So I know we didn't get anybody on here, but that's kind of our position on that and how we can help, and been doing a lot of it again since the beginning of my agency. We do a lot. We do surveillance every day, basically all over the country. So or all over the state. Question, comments, concerns?
Well, I know that you are all over the place because I see on social
I know you
media
I see it
that
on
you're all
LinkedIn. Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. Slowing
And
down a little bit. I got to testify. Actually, I got to testify for a case in Woodstock, Virginia, on a case in Eastern West Virginia that I handled. And I said, it was a process service case. And I said, "So you're going to pay me to come out there?" So yeah, they're going to pay me to come out there. So it's beautiful country down there, Woodstock, Virginia. Is kind of where I'm going to be at. But then I got to be in Wheeling that week by the end of the week for a state bar conference up there. So I'm doing a little more marketing than I had in the past, just to let people know I still exist and we're still out here doing it.
yeah. And I know from social media and from colleagues, you are a tremendous supporter of paralegals, not just here in Columbus, up in Toledo, Northwest Ohio, and other states. We do appreciate all that you do for us and
Yeah,
being such
yeah,
a good sustaining member.
yeah. I just sent some highlighters to NALA for their conference next month down in Louisville.
Mm,
So
okay. Well, Dean, I thank you so much for being here, for sharing your time and your expertise. And thank you for being such a good sustaining member and supporter of the paralegal profession. It's always good to have you. We will definitely have you back again.
definitely. So if anybody out there watches this after the fact and you have any questions, feel free to give me an email or give me a call. We're here if you need us.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Right.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You too.